Welcome to the Ozone.
Hello and welcome to the Ozone. I'm your host, Jeff Hazard, Assistant Director of Athletics and Sports Information Director here at SUNY Oneonta. And it is my pleasure to welcome to the show today Hall of Fame men's lacrosse player Ed Ryder. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Hey, bud, how are you?
Good. We've been talking for about 40 minutes here before the show while we're working out some of our technical issues, and certainly we've had a lot to talk about, and the stories are great. And that's kind of where I want to go with tonight, with the show, because obviously you've had a pretty long career in the game of lacrosse, although you did start in the game of basketball as a coach, and you had some success there as well. But let's start with Oneonta. Like, what was it about Oneonta that brought you here, and what did you love about Oneonta?
You said we only have 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I guess the long and the short of it is it's maybe unrelatable to modern kids, but my family, we were a camping family. We would go camping. A son of a truck driver, throw the pop-up trailer on the back of the family van, and Gilbert Lake was always one of our
Gilbert Lake.
At least once a year, my whole childhood, sometimes twice, like Memorial Day weekend and Labor Day weekend, let's say, right?
Yeah.
So I felt like I really knew Oneonta, and we didn't know anything about college. I'm the first in the family to go to college. So it was like, all right, well, I don't know. Oneonta has a college, and I know it. You know what I mean? I know the town and whatever. So, long story kind of meandering and end up there like, all right, this place is pretty cool, And that really is the God's honest truth, how it got on my radar screen from our family camping.
Yeah, now that's really funny because we brought our two sons to Gilbert Lake many a day just to swim and do whatever, hiking and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
So now, Ed, your coach, Corky Lynch, certainly, probably had something to do with you coming to Oneonta. And now you were playing during the early days of men's lacrosse, and you were kind of considered our offensive weapon.
Oh, don't go there.
No, well, you were our big attack guy, and you scored a lot of goals. And certainly, I know that you attribute that to your teammates, because you have had quite a few great teammates who we'll talk a little bit about, who have gone on to coach and find success in this game as well. But just talk a little bit about Corky and the early years of the men's lacrosse program and how the legacy really has, was built.
Right. I say this with affection, but to the modern coach and recruit, it may not sound like it's being said affectionately, but none of us were recruited really. Corky was, from what I understand, of the legend, right? There were some guys who wanted to get a lacrosse team started, and they couldn't find anybody to be the coach. Corky was, I guess, in an athletic department meeting, and again, I'm taking great liberties with the truth here, but was like, these guys want to play. Someone's got to coach them because I'm not a lacrosse guy. I'll coach them. They look at that. They're really eager to get it going.
Yeah.
So I guess 1979, 1980, something like that. He got it going. It was funny because he was so great. I mean, he is still, but what a great person. He would go to clinics, come back from the clinics and be like, all right, I saw this at the clinic. Let's try it, and it was awesome in that regard because there was something about his personality. And I don't necessarily need to rehash old ground, but you remember when you and I were talking on the eve of the Hall of Fame thing, he was the guy that he gave us space.
Yeah. Right.
We at the time might say, "Oh, come on, coach, lead us. Tell us what to do." But unknowingly, we were filling that space.
Right.
And like we were saying, so many of us went on to become coaches. And I am darn convinced a lot of it comes from that experience. That, one captain would be in charge of the offense. One captain would be in charge of the defense. You know what I mean? And we would brainstorm, and with him, of course,
Right.
And it was, I look back and it was the ideal learning experience. It was really, really incredible in that regard.
That whole interactive environment tends to, spawn, like you say, that whole learning, you learn by doing, hands-on, you get to be involved in the decision making and, that kind of stuff.
I tell you, and we can't take any credit for anything that's gone on. It's not like we were world beaters or whatever, but we started to get competitive, the program we felt like during that time period.
Yeah.
And there's really no connection, right, between us and then like in the 90s, let's say, when it really got going. But part of us feels like there was like, we left some DNA behind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this idea that, yeah, it was technically a team. You know how coaches like to talk about the difference between a team and a program?
Yeah.
We felt like maybe we planted some seeds that would go on to become a proper program.
Right.
Like we started an alumni game right after we graduated. There was never an alumni game. But after 1987, when a bunch of us graduated, we wanted to be back.
Yeah.
I was still there with Don Fluellen coaching basketball. So I worked with the alumni office. Imagine the world before the internet and email.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got an alumni game going, and that was one of our fondest memories of our lacrosse playing days. Actually includes several of those alumni games.
So, when we talk about Corky, of course, he had a lot of success as the diving coach. I mean, he coached national champions as divers. And then, of course, he was our men's soccer assistant to Gar Stam for many years. So, I mean, I guess, his legacy implanted, with you guys as you went on. Maybe you can talk a little bit, a couple of those guys that have gone on to the success in this game, and then maybe we can follow your career path, through basketball and lacrosse as well. So,
well, I should definitely start with an apology, because I'm sure in my enthusiasm to forget somebody and leave somebody out. By far, in my opinion, the best player we had in that group was Chris Thornhill. That kid could do anything on attack. And if you want to talk about goals that I scored, I'll bet you 2/3 of them, and our stats, as you know, you've tried to look for them.
Yeah.
I'll bet 2/3 of my goals are from him, where all I had to do was make a little move. I guess that was the coach in me, right? I wasn't going to outrun you, but I could outthink you. And the minute I knew where, like I was just talking with a coach the other day. There's a thing, I don't know, it's probably unfair of me, but I find myself telling players to be good at any sport, for lack of a better words, I think you need to be able to see the future. You need to be able to see about 3 or 4 seconds into the future. And I don't know if you could teach that, right? That was the conversation we were having. So anyway, I felt like I could see the future a little bit. And Chris, his nickname was Sandwich, and so could Sandwich. You know what I mean? So like when we both saw 2.5 seconds into the future, he could throw the ball to a space knowing that I'll probably be there. And then I would say things like, that ABBA song, "Take a Chance on Me." Take a chance. Take a chance. You know what I mean? And Chris, now, not only did he excel with us at Oneonta, but then I think his best lacrosse came after graduation. He would go to the Vail Shootout, to Lake Placid, and it got to the point where he was almost like a hired gun, like a free agent. Teams wanted him because one year when the onset of the internet, right? The famous Vail Shootout in Vail, Colorado, when they launched their first website, Chris was one of the pictures on it. You know what I mean? This is what we're talking about, right? And now he would be the least famous coach that you've heard of because he coaches in his hometown, and he's impacted so many youth players in the town that when he first moved there in northern New Jersey, I don't believe they even had varsity lacrosse. You know what I mean? And it's been like Coach Daddy, like so many of us start out, you know what I mean? Does little things. Just the other day, we traded text messages. He's taken the group, once the world opens up again, to West Point. They do an annual thing where they go and they watch an Army lacrosse game, and guess who the coach on the men's side is there? Joe Alberici, the former. You know what I mean? So like all this like crazy wheels within wheels, right? And then we have, the guy that guarded me every day in practice, Bob Leary. He's in fact, he's got a game tonight. He's the coach out at Marian University. He's been with the Iroquois national team. He's been, this is a guy that this is in his blood, Tim Boyle famously won the national championship at Dowling, national coach of the year. Ironically enough, Bob was the junior college national coach of the year. The same year, Tim was the Division II national coach of the year. You know what I mean? What are the odds of that, right? And now Tim is down at Wingate, and they just moved up, I want to say this week. They're number 6 in the rankings. And, it's just, like I said, I could go on for the whole half hour just talking about that.
That's quite a legacy.
No, it's remarkable. And I tell you, in a, like, I don't know if proud is the right word,
Yeah.
but the one that I'm most proud of in that regard are the ones that are working in their hometown, like Chris Thornhill.
Yeah.
Because I know from being Coach Ed around my hometown, those are the kids that remember. Like we have I guess a funny story, and I don't mean to, be self-aggrandizing, but I was coaching T-ball one year with my oldest son, and there was a kid. He was just a human rubber band. He was springing all over the place, bouncing around, and all due respect to baseball, it's maybe not the place for the kid who's the human rubber band.
Right. Right.
My son at the time, he was the brainiac, the esoteric thinking
Yeah.
man. So that was a good plot for him, right? So anyway, I said to his parents one day, they're like 6 years old, 7 years old. We're walking off the field, and I said to his parents one day, I go, you should look into track and field with him. I don't know if we have, whatever. Fast forward 12 years later, he gets a full ride to University of Maryland as a triple jumper.
Oh, jeez.
You know what I mean? Like, and that is never going to be a famous story.
Right.
But in that kid's life, it is.
Yeah, it is.
So those local youth coaches have such a big impact. And it's one of those things that you plant seeds and you maybe don't get to see them.
Right. And we have, in that group that the players that we had in the 90s, a lot of them are coaching high school boys and girls lacrosse. So, I mean, like you can say, the legacy and the history, for Oneonta really is amazing.
It's remarkable.
They talk about the game of soccer. They talk about the game of soccer in Oneonta being Soccer Town, USA, but yet, lacrosse can almost have that same kind of heritage. It's not as publicized.
Well, you know what? You have two. I mean, it's almost like what is it? The Allegheny and the Monongahela River, the Ohio River, right? You have You have two very significant strains there. Yeah. I think I saw something just the other day that by a long shot, more Long Island kids who go on to be student athletes in college do so in lacrosse. Like It's just off the charts. Like 60% of all Long Island kids who go off to be student athletes are lacrosse players, male and female.
Wow.
And then you take Oneonta, what's one of the largest regions that feeds that school?
Yeah.
So now you're increasing your chances that this remarkable statistic of so many that stay in the game and go forward come from Oneonta.
Yeah.
The true Red Dragons, by the way.
That's right, the true Red Dragons, the real Red Dragons. So you started out as a basketball coach. Like you said, you were helping Coach Don Fewelling. And, we had some pretty good teams in that time. You had some Hall of Fame players that you were able to, coach and work with. And then you did that for a little bit. So, talk me through how you were in basketball, but then you came back to lacrosse.
Why don't I just mail you my resume?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to talk about it for the air? It's a little bit of a boring interview. Yeah, exactly. No, so I went to Oneonta thinking I would be a high school social studies teacher and a coach.
Yeah.
Partly because those were my role models growing up.
Yeah.
Right. Those were the people that I want that kind of life. I want to be that kind of person.
Yeah.
So we get up there. And I didn't intend to become a college basketball coach. I mean, like you dream about it, but
right.
It wasn't really on the radar screen. So I was playing lacrosse with Corky, and our guys were like our social group, our teammates. Well, then Don was on sabbatical at Cornell. Don Fewelling.
Yep.
So he's on sabbatical at Cornell, but he was teaching in the spring semester of my junior year that coaching techniques class or whatever on basketball, right? So of course I sign up for that class. And in the course, what do you know? He says, I'm thinking of having a student assistant. It was a budget cut situation, right? Thinking about having a student assistant. If you're interested, let me know. So I stuck around after class. I mentioned I was interested and got involved with him, spent the spring. So I would come off the lacrosse field, go into the basketball office with Don. We would talk about recruiting or what it is, because he was still shuttling back and forth to Cornell. But he would come back and, we would meet up at the end of our respective days. And it was this like great mentorship. And I guess he was feeling me out to see that, okay, is this the kid? Right. And so before you know it, he's got me on the road recruiting. So I'm a junior in college going with him to the state tournament in Glens Falls to, different. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. I like this, And then he had obviously his famous big guy and tall gal camps. So I stayed and worked the camps and continued to be with him and recruit and whatever. So the fall comes around, I would play fall lacrosse, come in off the field, which was usually muddy and disgusting, but go into practice with him. He would run practice from 4 to 6 o'clock with the varsity. I would get on the floor as quick as I could after lacrosse, watch him basically, use the same exact practice plan because he was old school and he liked to have the JV be all freshmen, like back in the day when freshmen weren't eligible, right? So then from 6 to 8, I would run the same practice plan, but with all freshmen, and I would basically parrot Don. I would say what he would say, I would make the points, and you talk about a learning experience. Holy crow. And it's not like he stuck around and watched. I was on my own. So he threw me in the water and I said, hope you could swim, you know? And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing to be at his elbow, learning the profession was just, and it was at a time when he was super reinvigorated, coming back from that sabbatical.
Yeah.
You know, so then from there, obviously with the connection, I stayed after graduation, lived in his house like every assistant seems to have done during that time. So I stayed 1 year after graduation. I coached with him and lived in his house. And then that led to me going to Cornell. They had won the Ivy League that year and all their assistant coaches got head jobs. So that opened their whole staff. So I went to Cornell. I learned how to coach basketball from Don. And I learned how to coach basketball in Cornell too. But I learned how to run a Division I program in Cornell. That was an experience. To do the things that an Ivy League team does compared to what a state school did. Oh, it was remarkable. And then like so many other coaches, you know, you meet friends on the road, recruiting, working camps, whatever. And a friend was an assistant at Manhattan College. And he said, you know, over some adult beverages one night, hey, whichever one of us gets a head job first, the other guy has to come and be the assistant. They're like, yeah, here, you know what I mean? Well, then he got the head coaching job at Adelphi. So I went from Cornell down to Adelphi, was at Adelphi for a couple of years. And then the weirdest thing happened because, you know, it's not like what you know, it's who you know. And it's not that I was connected. It was more a coincidence of being in the right place at the right time. My athletic director comes in at Adelphi and says there's this group called People to People International. It's a nonprofit group that does international tours, and their director of their sports program director is retiring, and they have to go cheaper. They can't afford retired ADs. They're looking to go cheaper and younger. Would you be interested? I said, I don't even know what you're talking. Like, I didn't even know it existed as an industry, you know? And one thing led to another. So I left coaching, never thought I would ever leave coaching, got into the foreign tour business. And oh my word, you imagine, I mean, you and I have talked about this a little bit, but you imagine traveling the world with teams? You know, like I think were the places that I've been to. The joke is because we did a lot of basketball since I had come from basketball, but we were all sports, frankly. And I joke I've made a 3-pointer on 4 continents. You know, like if the team is warming up, I would go shoot around too. It's remarkable because I find myself telling people that when you travel, there's nothing like it. And if you have a chance, anyone who's watching this, travel. But when you travel with sports, you meet the people in the most passionate part of their life. So like when you meet people when you're traveling, maybe it's the taxi driver, you know, the bell captain at the hotel, you know, whatever. That's not the most passionate part of their life. You know? But when you meet someone, fellow coaches, players, if you're a player on it's life-changing. Like it's absolutely incredible experience. So then I did that, and again, to stay on the resume per your request, it's funny. I was talking about Chris Thornhill before about a month ago. It's funny. So if there are soccer fans out there, they probably know Ray Hudson, the famous broadcaster who's so colorful. Well, Ray and I one year got into this little email dialogue back and forth about coaching, the nature of the American game. I don't even know how it happened, right? Well, one night on a broadcast, he's doing a Barcelona game, and he does a shout out to me and my sons.
Oh, geez.
And so Sandwich, Chris Thornhill says, he goes, Jesus, Eddie, you're like the Forrest Gump of sports. Because I've been very lucky to have my foot in so many different things, you know. So then, I start doing the tours, and the travel was amazing, but you start having a family. And I realized, you know what, being on the road 10 out of 12 weeks of the summer, not so cool anymore. So I made a career change into teaching, became a high school teacher and coach. Things go full circle, right? And so I've been doing that for a long time now. And, maybe someday soon I'll be able to retire from it.
Yeah.
Not like a 30-year retiree like a lot of people are. I'll only have about 20 or 25 years in, depending on when I go.
Right.
But then, you dirty rat, I called you. You got us all back together for the Hall of
Yeah.
Fame.
I'm glad.
And what does Bob Leary, the coach at Marion that I mentioned before, say? Let's get the band back together.
Yep.
Let's go back to Australia one more time.
Yep.
And it becomes a business.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And so now, like what the cool kids would call a side hustle,
Yeah.
I take teams to Australia. I used to be every team, every country in the world, right? So now I just focus on Australia. And so we started out 2019. We took our first team because 2018 was the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
So 2019 we took a team. We played in a tournament with the under-19 Australian team. Japan sent their team, and we won the gold medal.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, we've got kids from 12 different states, 3 Canadians, an Oneida boy from Wisconsin. Like, we were the United Nations. It was unbelievable. And before you know it, it takes off and people want to go to Australia. But then before you know it, COVID hits and the pandemic shuts everything down.
Right. So that's kind of where I wanted to go. Obviously our student athletes here, we're looking forward to a spring season. We have one scheduled and planned and ready to go.
Yeah.
But of course we missed out on fall and winter.
Yeah.
From your experience, with all your experience as a coach and mentor and role model, like, what would you tell the college athletes, that are competing now? Like,
everything their parents don't want to hear me say. Meaning, I was a brass ring guy. I was reaching for the brass ring. I wanted to accelerate, get into adult life, and do all those, great, exciting, glamorous things that I had dreamed of doing and imagined, both imagined and unimagined, right?
Right.
I would say now, looking back and thinking of this generation specifically, like I told you before we came on the air and before, anyone who'll listen, I'm gutted for this generation. They've had so much taken from them. I would slow down. I would not be in a rush. If they offered an extra year of eligibility, I would take it, because speaking to fellow Red Dragons, I doubt there's anyone that I'm speaking to who is going to play professionally in their particular sport. They may continue to play seriously, but probably not professionally. I would say slow down, don't be in a rush. And I think I said this to you at the Hall of Fame before the pandemic.
Right.
These are the greatest experiences, the greatest days of your life. And if you get a chance to have a do-over, me personally, if there was a way, I would take that do-over if I could.
Yeah. Wow, that's great.
Because your road is going to unfold.
Yep.
Life is this series, like I tell, because I teach high school kids, right?
Yeah.
So I talk about the college, city kids too. So they were like me, first generation college kids, so I try to talk about the process a lot. And I can't help but be metaphoric and imagine life is like this long hallway of open doors. And sometimes you maybe make a bad choice or something goes wrong or something like the pandemic hits,
Right.
and doors close. It doesn't mean all the doors close. There's still open doors. You don't need to know what's through those doors. You just need to know that those doors are open. I'm going to get really wonky now. I apologize, but it's kind of poignant to where we are in this conversation. I imagine people know who John Green is, right? I know him as a social studies teacher because he does these very cool videos, the social studies curriculum, right? They call it Crash Course. But he's also a novelist, like The Fault in Our Stars, Looking for Alaska, I think is one of his books. And as a Liverpool man, he's also a Liverpool Football Club fan, so I love him even more. But anyway, he has a TED Talk. Who doesn't have a TED Talk, right?
Yeah.
He has a TED Talk where he talks about why learning is awesome. And he uses the reference to cartography, to map making.
Yeah.
Like, we're all cartographers and we're drawing our map as we go through life. And every time we have a new experience, we learn something new and we put it on our map, whether or not we return to visit it ever again, doesn't matter.
Right.
But the act of exploring these new lands, sailing to them, drawing them on our map, makes us better, and it helps. Because what's the classic refrain from kids? When am I ever going to use this?
Right.
It's not about when you're ever going to use it. So, to circle back to college athletics, this time it may not be anything that leads to a career, because I was lucky it did lead to a career, but it's going to help you. It's like the argument for playing multiple sports, right?
Right.
I'm never going to be a baseball player. No, but it's going to make you a better lacrosse player. It's going to make you a better basketball. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
So don't get me started, man. I
No, that's
talk to
good. No, I'm telling you, that's incredible advice for just a lot of different things, but certainly our
I'm the
student
parent of
athletes.
4, right? And so many times parents don't want to hear what I have to
Right,
say.
right.
Like at the soccer field, I'll go sit down by the corner flag because they know if they ask me, I'm going to give it, the straight talk,
Yeah.
because they want study hard, good grades,
Yeah,
graduate in 4 years, get a job, why be in such a rush?
right,
Right?
right.
It's not, you just need to finish. You just need to find, what do they call it? Find your posse. I
Yeah,
think the
yeah,
cool kids say, right? Find what, and you'll be good. But when you have a chance to do something, college swimming, college soccer, think of the crew helping you with this, right?
right,
Why
right,
would you be in a rush to get away from that?
right. Now, so I guess I would just circle back to, do you think that philosophy started with Corky and the way he kind of let you guys find your
Why do
way?
you embarrass me like that?
I'm
I could
surprised you
never
don't have your
mimic.
picture. I know you have nice photos behind you. Where's your cutout of Corky? I thought
Oh, that's a great call. He's in
I
the
thought
basement.
you were going to bring that tonight.
Oh my goodness. No, I was going to use my classic start out with the mask because I don't know what
Yeah.
you did. Oh, darn it. Yes, I should have thought you are the worst ever. Yeah, but that's how much we love that guy, right?
Yeah.
But like I hinted at before, we didn't know it at the time. We knew we liked him and we knew it was charming and
Yeah.
we loved the funny banter between us, right? But I don't think we realized until we were off exploring our own worlds, right? Drawing our own map of the world, that we realized what he did and what he meant. So, yeah, undoubtedly, yes, but totally we were unaware of it.
Well, sometimes the greatest learning takes place when you don't really know it, right?
No, it's so true. Like I told you, I knew I was learning so much when I was with Don Fluellen. Like I knew it. I was like this sponge
Right.
soaking up as much as I could.
Yeah.
And with Corky, it was like he's so chill,
Yeah.
like to use a cool word, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just,
Yeah.
what a good man.
Yeah, he is. He
And that's
is.
why when you and I reunited with the whole Hall of Fame thing, I told you how we were having a get together and we were calling it Corky's Kids.
Yeah.
Like we made a social media group for ourselves so we could update each other, and we called it Corky's Kids. We didn't call it Reunion. We called it Corky's Kids because that's what he meant to us.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're getting towards the end of our time here, and I know it was great talking to you for the 40 minutes before we did the
I've
show.
only just warmed up.
I know, I tell you, it's, Ed, it's always great to catch up with you because you do have so many stories. But again, I think just the experience that you just spoke about, to be able to pass that on and hopefully the people that will listen to this will understand. And maybe they might learn something even though they don't know if they are. You know what
Well,
I'm
so that's
saying?
just it, right? It sounds like a foofy,
Yeah.
present TED Talk type of line, right?
Yeah.
But it's so true.
Yeah.
If I could, I'm working on a time machine. If I can get it finished, I'm going back to Oneonta. I'm going back to 1983 to 87.
Yeah.
And it's without a doubt, that's the place I'm going
Yeah.
to do those years all over again.
Well, we certainly know that you're an ambassador for Oneonta and all the lessons that you're teaching and you're passing on to the students, young students that you have now. Is we're glad that it started here, and you're one of our favorite people.
Oh, stop.
So right now, I want to just we'll close this up with just 5 quick questions, and I want you to give me the first thing that pops into your mind.
Here comes the embarrassing
No,
part.
this is going to be fun. It'll be fun. So first question, what's your favorite meal?
Like you mean breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Well, no, just like your favorite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, meal.
Wow. Wow. So I'm not a stereotypical Long Island guy because I'm further enough east that maybe I'm not stereotypical. But I'll tell you what, an egg sandwich from a deli is pretty darn
There you
good.
go. Good,
Nice
good
cup
deli.
of coffee and an egg sandwich. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yes, yes. What is your all-time favorite movie?
You're killing me. I'm the guy who like when people ask, I say, well, define favorite. Like when someone says, because they know I've traveled, what's your favorite
Yes.
place? You know,
Yeah.
well, define favorite. There's so many. Wow. All right, I'm gonna rock the young kids,
Okay.
make them go onto Netflix. Sling Blade, because it
Oof.
really makes you think. What is the definition of right and wrong?
Wow.
Like, wow.
Okay.
Yes, I'll leave it.
What is your favorite genre of music?
There's only one that counts. 1980s new wave.
Oh, there you go.
If it's not from Manchester, don't bother me. Although I have become big in my old age on roots rock, like the whole American roots rock, like the
Okay.
Jayhawks and Sun Volt and some of those bands.
Wow. Okay. Favorite athlete all time?
I have 4 kids, dude. You know, like the cool answer is to say, "Oh, my son or my daughter."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Favorite of all time. Wow. All right. There's no short stories with Ed Ryder, right? So when I wore number 44,
Yep.
as you probably have seen, right?
Pete Maravich.
So, well, it's funny you say that.
Pistol Pete.
Hank Aaron.
Hank Aaron.
My dad tells a story. He's passed away now, but my dad
Yep.
told me a story that when Hank Aaron was chasing the home run record, I was obsessed with baseball because I'd never heard of lacrosse, right? Until we
Right.
were older. And I was obsessed with baseball and could not understand like the whole racial abuse and the stories on
Yeah.
the news and everything. And my dad, and I don't remember this, my dad told me this. He goes, yeah, you were really confused. You couldn't quite understand it. And he was not much of a sports guy, right? So then when I started wearing 44 in lacrosse, unknowing to myself, he goes, I think you did it because of Hank Aaron. And
Wow.
I'm like, really? So I don't know that I would say, you know, oh yeah, he was my favorite athlete of all time. But it seems if my dad's story was accurate, that he had the most impact on me.
Wow. Wow. Now, see, the first time I played middle school basketball, I picked up the number 44. My number was always 11, but they didn't have
Okay.
11. So 44, the first thing the coach said was, oh, Pistol Pete. And of course, I didn't know who Pistol Pete was.
No, right,
you know what I'm
exactly.
saying?
Can you imagine if we had ESPN back then
Oh
when we
my
were growing
goodness!
up? Yeah.
I tell you, I did read his bio. If you ever have a chance to read the book Pistol,
Okay.
oh, his dad. You want to talk about basketball nut? His
Right.
dad was a freak basketball.
Well, he's the one who moved the family all over the country for different coaching jobs, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he really is. He's really like he started all this man-to-man stuff. I think
Yeah.
coaches modified what he was talking
Yep.
about.
Yep.
But yeah, so yeah, Pistol Pete, yeah, Hank Aaron, what a player, what a man, what a man.
Yep.
And then of course I know you've traveled all over the world. My last question is the place you would most like to visit. You already said you'd move to Australia in a minute.
Yeah,
So is
yeah.
there another place that's kind of like another favorite that you'd say, hey, I'd like to go back?
On. Yes, of course there is, but I'm going to insist that I tell the story again that we
That's
talked
okay.
about before recording.
Yeah.
So there's so many places. I love Italy. I love Spain. Oh my God, I love Spain. Japan was fascinating, right? So many places. I felt, my DNA was home in Ireland. But when people travel, because everybody's on board with the idea that travel opens up your mind, you see
Yeah.
new things, whatever, right? Well, it's been my experience that when people travel, whether it's sports or not, of course, they talk about the places they're going to go see. Then they go see those places. Then they come back and they tell people about the places they saw. Oh, the pyramids, the Great Wall of China, all those things. With Australia, you go there, you're going to see the places, the Sydney Opera House, Sydney Harbour, et cetera, right? But when you come back from Australia, you tell stories about the people you've met. They are the most incredible people I have ever met. And since my very first day in country meeting them, I've wanted to move there.
Wow.
Like I make the joke, if my wife can cut the umbilical cord with her family, I would move there, right?
Right.
So now my next stop is, well, maybe retirement. Maybe
Yeah.
we could retire down there. They are the most hospitable, funny, friendly. You could walk into, let's say, a pub or a tavern. They oftentimes call it a hotel
Yeah.
because drinking in the 1800s is so out of control. They had to pass a law that only guests at the hotel could go to the bar.
Wow.
They just try to. So oftentimes the bar is called a hotel.
Yeah.
But anyway, you could walk in and walk upon a group of people, yucking it up, having a great time. And A, maybe they've never met before that night. B, one could be a barrister, which is like the equivalent of a judge. One could be a plumber. One could be a truck driver. Like and you would never even know it.
Wow.
Like the idea, every place has social class, right?
Yeah.
But they're all mates. They have this concept called mateship.
Yep.
It's like we're all in this together. We're all mates, and
Wow.
it's brilliant, as they would say.
Wow. Well, that brings us to the end of our time, and I certainly again want to thank you for joining us. I know you're a pretty busy guy, and we
I'll
always
be going over to Instagram Live to continue this conversation.
yeah.
Did that sound cool? That's the way the kids talk.
Yeah, I know,
right?
that's what they do. Yeah. And we certainly hope that we'll have a chance for you to actually come back to campus sometime when they open everything back up and this, pandemic kind of passes us by. And
From your lips to God's ears.
yeah, so we certainly hope that is soon. So,
Great.
so thank you again for joining me tonight, and
My
certainly
pleasure.
continued health and well-being for all your family and your children. So,
Back at you, buddy.
all right.
Thanks.
So I want to thank Ed Ryder for joining me tonight, and certainly I want to thank you for watching, and I encourage you always to check back in for the latest episodes. You can watch our videos on YouTube, or you can download the podcast to your smart devices at any time, or you can listen at your leisure. So I'd like to thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Ozone.